It turns out that a lot of small business people are very confused about how to price their products and services. They're confused and they wish they knew more, and they don't really know where to get the information to make those possible changes that would add dramatically to their income if they were properly pricing their products and services. This is Randy Kirk. This is Small Business Daily. Today, we're going to be talking about pricing. If you like the idea that we're going to be talking about pricing, would you push like? And also, would you consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notify button if you'd like to hear more content like this in the future and be notified when it's available? Because every day we talk about small business issues that are affecting you. We've talked about selling. We've talked about Elon Musk as an entrepreneur and how his methods of doing business could affect the way you do business if you were paying attention to his approaches and style. There's a whole bunch of things we've talked about, and we'll be talking about lots more in future episodes on a daily basis. That's why we call it Small Business Daily. You know, there's one more thing I'd like you to check out. We have a new website. It's called freebusinesshelpnow.com. And on freebusinesshelpnow.com, I just published an 8-page study on pricing strategies. So if you don't want to sit through today's YouTube video, and if you don't want to come back tomorrow and the next day and hear what I'm going to say about pricing over these 3 days, you could immediately go to freebusinesshelpnow.com, and there it is, the entire 8-page report on pricing strategies. So, and of course, much, much more. So, but for now, let's jump into the subject of today's meeting, and that is how to price your products and services better. What do I mean by better? I mean so that you can make more money, because you don't want to be underselling, you don't want to be overselling, you don't want to be charging your people too much or too little. Let's talk about pricing. The beginning of any discussion on the matter of pricing your products starts with what they cost you. You need to know what they cost, and you need to get your costs equal to or less than your competition. I think if you thought about that for a few minutes, you'd realize that what I've just told you could dramatically change your business. If you're currently paying more than your competition for products or services, then how can you possibly compete? If you're paying the same, great. You can sell it for the same, or sell it for a couple of pennies less, or a couple of pennies more, depending on your strategy. And you'll make as much as he will or she will. But if you're paying less than your competition for whatever it is that you're selling, then you have tremendous amounts of opportunities to make a profit by dropping your price, by advertising more, by promoting more. Just the list is endless. And even if all you do is sell at the same price, you're making more money every single day that he or she is. So how is it that you could be paying more than your competitor? It happens all the time. I'm going to tell you a quick story on myself. I owned a plastics manufacturing business, and one of the things we had to do was buy color. And we bought a lot of different colors. I think we had about 30 colors of these bicycle squeeze bottles that we were manufacturing. And so we had color people coming in, selling us the color that went into the plastic. So for the first couple of years that we were making these bottles, I finally landed on this one company who was selling me all the color. And one day, another color company came in and said, "Hey, I'd like to do business with you." I said, "I'm really happy with the guy I got. He delivers on time. His pricing seems okay." The guy says, "Well, just for fun, what are you paying for black color, and what are you paying for white color?" And I told him that I was paying, I think, $4 a pound for black and maybe $3 a pound for white or something of that nature. And he goes, "Well, I guess maybe you're getting a good deal, except that the standard day in and day out price for white and black is 99 cents. Everybody in town will sell you for 99 cents. I called the supplier and I said, "What's the deal?" He said, "No, that's true." I said, "You've been ripping me off for the last couple of years." He said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you stopped. You won't be ripping me off anymore. You're done." So you see, It doesn't matter how much you're buying. It doesn't matter whether you think you've got the best guy in town selling you stuff. The truth is, until you're a sharp buyer, you're not likely to find out that you've got the very best price. So how do you become a sharp buyer? Well, number one, just like we just heard about, that was a happenstance. The guy happened to drop into my business and happened to make me look like an idiot. Not the first time or the last, but you don't have to wait. You could be on the phone talking to your suppliers and saying, what do I do to get a better price? I need a better price. My pricing is not good enough. Do I need to buy more quantity? I'm buying now in 1s or 2s or 12s. Do I need to buy 12s or 24s or 144s or big containers? I was buying my plastics in boxcar loads because it was way cheaper than buying them 1 Gaylord at a time or 2 or 3 Gaylords at a time. It was a huge discount to buy them in those full boxcars at a time. Now I had to negotiate how long it would take me to completely unload that boxcar. And so I wanted to keep my price the same. Well, how long will you let that boxcar sit on the side rail before I have to take 100% of it? That was the negotiation, okay? That may be the negotiation you need to make. Maybe you're buying products for a retail store or a wholesale business. How long can you make a contract over months where you're promising to take 10 times what you normally do in a month? So you're in a contract basis, but you still want them shipped monthly, but you're guaranteeing that you'll take X number over 10 months or a year or whatever the deal might be. That might get you a lower price. What about letting the salespeople at the supplier know that you're interested in seconds, or you're interested in things that are overstocked, or things that whenever they go on sale, or maybe it's completely a dead item and they want to get rid of it. You'd like to know about all of those. That's another way that you may be able to make some really good deals. Some of the plastics that we bought did not have to be first quality. So I was able to buy second quality plastics at a much lower cost. So you add up the lower cost for the second quality, and you add up the lower cost to buy it in boxcars at a time instead of Gaylords. And I was saving a tremendous amount of money compared to my competition. What else could you possibly do? Well, sometimes it's really just a matter of beating them up. I love suppliers, and I will tell anybody that listens that you need to take care of your suppliers just like you need to take care of your customers, because there's way more customers than there are suppliers. You might only have 2 or 3 or 4 suppliers to choose among, and you've got thousands, maybe millions of potential customers in your neighborhood or your area that you're supplying. So I want you to take care of your suppliers. I don't want you to grind them down to the last nickel to where they're not making money on you, because then they're not going to care about you if they're not making money on you. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be aggressive. So sometimes it really is just a case of saying, this is not good enough. I'm going to go talk to George about their opportunities and whether they might sell me for a nickel less, unless we can get this price down. So negotiating with your suppliers to get your price down so that you're 100% confident that you're not paying more than your competitors in your field. Now you've got the price down, you've got your raw material cost down, you got your product cost down, you've got, how about your freight? You can negotiate the freight. Maybe they'll give it to you freight free if you buy X amount. Maybe they'll give you an annual rebate on your freight. There's lots of ways to play that game. But what about the freight? What about the terms? Are you going to have to pay for it in 30 days? Or maybe they'll give you 60 days, or maybe they'll give you 6 months. In some industries, you have people that give you seasonal dating on the stuff that you buy, and you get 6 months to pay. There's so many different ways to get these costs down. But then we want to make sure that you really know what your costs are. Okay? So the average guy would say, hey, I got the product delivered on my doorstep. I look at the invoice. It says it cost me $7. There you go. There's my cost. But it's not your total cost. Well, it might be, but what if you had to pay freight? What if the unit price on the freight coming in was $1 a piece? And it might be $1. It might be way more than $1 a piece for the freight coming in. Well, the freight in is a part of your cost of goods sold. So if you're not adding that cost of freight into your cost, you're not getting a true analysis of your cost in order to figure out what your margins are, or to figure out what your net profit per unit is. So what is your freight? What about assembly or some kind of handling that needs to be done to the product before it's ready to reship or ready to sell at retail? If there's some kind of labor involved in getting that item ready to resell, that is a cost of that product. It is a cost of goods. You need to add that in as well. I'm not going to go down all the list of the possible ways that there's a difference between the landed cost at your back door and what it should be considered from an accounting standpoint as your final cost before it's resold but those are some of the things that you should look at and have your accountant look at as well. What about the costs if you're in a service business? You still have a cost of that service. Usually it's going to be heavily involved in the matter of labor. What does your labor really cost? So let's take a look at what your labor really costs if you're a law firm or a CPA or an automotive repair services provider. Something that you're offering a service where labor is the major component. How do you determine your cost of that service? Well, number one, you want to find out what is the real cost per hour of that individual working for you. So let's say that they're a $25 an hour employee. You've got your percentage of the taxes. You've got all of the other things that you pay, like unemployment insurance, et cetera. You got to add all that in. If they get vacation pay each year or paid vacation, you got to add that in. If they get days off for sick leave or whatever they call it today, you got to add that in. If they are getting any kind of additional benefits, health and other kinds of benefits, you need to add all those in. So you add all those in and you come up with a per hour rate. I'm going to guess that the average $25 an hour person is probably getting about $35 an hour after all of the benefits and all of the vacation time, et cetera, are all taken into consideration. So that gives you your base, $35 an hour. Next, after you've determined that base, you got to figure out how many of their hours each week are billable. So if you have somebody that's working 40 hours, but they're only billing 30 hours, or in other words, even if it's not a specific build, you don't have a systematic way of capturing that, you do need to go and take a look somehow at how many hours per week is that person putting in that ends up being something you invoice for. Because there's administrative things that these individuals are doing. There may be training that they're giving or taking. They may be managing others. There may be slow times where there's nothing to do and they're just hanging out or sweeping floors. So you need to figure out what percentage of their time on average is going into something you can invoice. Let's say that's 2/3, let's say 66%. Well, that will mean that now your $35 hour billing rate is really got to be about a $50 billing rate. Do you see where I'm coming from? So that's how you figure out the costs that you have associated with a service employee. All right, now you know the cost. Now you can finally determine the strategy for having your pricing. And that's where we're going to go next. Today is all about figuring out what your cost is, getting your costs down, because those two things are going to they're so critical to your pricing strategy. When you get your cost super low, it gives you enormous varieties of ways that you can now play the game on the selling price. Okay, so I'm Randy Kirk. This is Small Business Daily. If you haven't pushed the like button yet, please press the like button. If you haven't said subscribe, please do that. If you haven't pushed the notify bell, slap that notify bell. And tomorrow, come back to Small Business Daily, where we'll be talking about pricing strategies.